Everyone's showing you a keto pizza recipe, but it's time to spice it up a little bit differently. Let's do something along the lines of a sandwich, because quite honestly, when you're on keto, it's one of those things that you crave. You can only have a lettuce wrap for so long before it starts to get a little bit old. So in this video, I want to break down a caprese panini, something that you can have on a ketogenic lifestyle, or even if you're just living a healthy lifestyle and you want to watch your carbs for a little bit. So I have some basic ingredients here that I'm going to lay out for you ahead of time. I'm going to show you how to make this super simple recipe that you can share with all your friends. All right, so I've got some cauliflower crust pizza that I have from our friends over at Cali'flour Foods. Okay, this pizza crust is awesome. It doesn't matter whether you're keto or not. This stuff just makes life so easy. No grains, no wheat, no gluten, none of that stuff. You're just dealing with good old-fashioned cauliflower. That's going to give you all kinds of hormone-boosting powers and also make it so that you're not having to deal with those carbs. Okay, then I have some already cooked chicken. So when you're doing any kind of panini, you want to make sure the chicken's already cooked. All right, and then I also have some avocado oil, which I'll get to the science of in just a second. Got a little bit of balsamic vinegar, some basil, and some goat cheese, which is kind of the star of the show here. So I'm going to show you a little bit more about what I mean with that. So let's get down to how to do this. So I've gone ahead and I've plugged in a simple panini press. In this case, I'm just using a George Foreman grill. Doesn't even have to be anything fancy. Pick this up at Target for like 20 bucks. So when we use the cauliflower pizza crust, you want to let them defrost a little bit first. So they're going to be frozen when you first pull them out of the freezer, and then you're going to want to let them sit for maybe 10-15 minutes so they're a little bit softer. Because what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut this in half right out the gate. Okay, and they cut super easy. Now I actually did want to say this. Those of you that watch my channel, you know that Cauliflower sponsors this channel, but we have something super cool going on. So Cali'flour Foods has actually launched a keto stack. So it's a stack of their keto crust, the stack of their cauliflower crust pizzas. Now this is super cool because I actually partnered up with them and wrote a keto guide that goes along with it. So that's kind of why we're doing this video. It's kind of a special for that, is because I wrote a PDF that explains some of the commonly asked questions surrounding the world of ketosis. So we're offering it up alongside these cauliflower pizza crusts so that you can get not only the food, but you can get the information that's going to help you utilize the food better. All right, so now that we've already gone and cut this in half, just want to make sure we don't crumble it up. We're going to start with just laying down some chicken. Okay, nothing fancy at all. Just going to kind of layer this however we need to. I'm going to actually cut this in quarters to make it a little bit easier later on. And this way I'll just grill kind of one at a time. Okay, drizzling a little bit of balsamic on here. Now you don't need much because it's going to make it a sloppy mess when you put it on the grill. But the reason that I'm using the balsamic is outside of just the taste is I actually want the acetic acid out of it. So you hear me talking about apple cider vinegar all the time. Okay, there's two benefits to apple cider vinegar. One is of course the mother, but the other one is the acetic acid. But believe it or not, you can get the acetic acid from balsamic as well. And that acetic acid is going to help regulate your blood sugar. So whether you're on a keto diet or not, you want to be modulating that blood sugar. So adding a little bit of acid to the foods that you eat is really good for driving down the glycemic index, the glycemic load of whatever food you're consuming. So that also just gives the chicken a little bit of flavor. All right, the next thing I want to do, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of dried basil on here. And the reason I'm doing that is simply because it's going to get a little bit more of the concentrated components of basil that I want. Fresh basil tastes awesome on a panini though, so you definitely want to make sure that whenever you're doing any kind of caprese, you either go with some kind of dehydrated basil, or you go with the big bushy leaves that are going to give you more of a flavor. It just depends what you want. But the bushy leaves are going to give you a little bit more in the way of sort of some volume to the panini. All right, now I'm going to drizzle a tiny bit of avocado oil on here. And here's what's really important. You see some people using olive oil and things like that. Don't need much. I'm going to use less than a tablespoon. Avocado oil is probably the best oil that you can be using to cook with at any point, whether you're on a keto diet or not. So here's the thing. Avocado oil has a smoke point of 520 degrees. Normally, you're looking at various oils that have smoke points that are much lower. So if you put olive oil on this and then you put it on a hot panini press, you're going to be in a situation where you're actually making the oil go rancid. And then you're changing the omega structure, you're changing how it responds within the body. Oils go rancid very easily. If you've ever left a fish oil pill or even just fish out on the counter, you know that it starts to smell really bad after only 20 or 30 minutes. That's because as soon as it reacts with oxygen, it ends up causing an issue where it goes rancid. Okay, this is called lipid peroxidation. Now, when you have avocado oil, it can handle up to 520 degrees before it's considered unstable. So it's a very powerful fat and something that we want to make sure we add into the mix whenever we're using high heat. These George Foreman grills are cheap. They're not the highest quality thing in the world, which means they get scalding hot and they will burn you, and they will also destroy your oils and cause lipid peroxidation and make your fats go to waste. So, sorry, George Foreman, but you know it's true. All right, and then we've got the star of the show, goat cheese. Why is this the star of the show? Well, I'll tell you in 1 second, because what's interesting is it's less to do with the lactose and more to do with something that's known as A1 and A2 beta-caseinates. The big problem with dairy isn't so much the lactose. You see, people always think that it's lactose that causes the problem. They're like, oh, well, I have dairy and my stomach gets sensitive, or oh, I might be lactose intolerant. Realistically, lactose intolerance is only one small part of the equation. The big part of the equation is our issue with casein. You see, casein protein is the carcinogen. Casein protein is the thing that causes problems. And when you look at different kinds of milk and dairy, you have two different kinds. You have A1 and you have A2. A2 is the original one, way back when, tens of thousands of years ago, before there's all this adulteration. Then, as everything started to hybridize and change, and we started to genetically modify things, and things started to just become harvested in a much more rampant way, and we controlled sort of the food system, it transferred over to what's called A1 casein. And here's what's interesting. A1 and A2 caseins are very, very similar. The only thing that differentiates them is one amino acid. So if we look at bad dairy on the number 67 amino acid ends up having what's called histidine. Histidine is a specific amino acid that's easier to break down in terms of how it actually falls apart. Now, if you look at the good dairy, we have one that's called proline. Proline is a stronger amino acid. It's a stronger amino acid bond. So what happens when you consume dairy that isn't good is you're consuming that A1 type, and it breaks down into small particles inside your body. And when they break down in small particles, it triggers this inflammation response because it leaks something that's called BCM7. BCM7 is an opioid, which means it's addictive, and it actually triggers all kinds of negative effects within your body. If you've ever noticed that you get addicted to dairy, addicted to milk, addicted to cheese, it's simply because it literally is an opioid. That BCM7 that is broken down in your body is not good stuff. So that's why whenever I do recommend cheese, I usually recommend using a goat cheese of some kind, just because it's so much easier on your body, and you're not gonna have to deal with that. So this is a really easy recipe. I mean, all we've done here is added the goat cheese. All I'm going to do here is go ahead and fold that over, press it down so that it doesn't break when I pick it up. Set this guy on this scalding hot panini press. Okay. We're going to let that sit for just a couple of minutes. We're going to flip it over and do the same just to give it a little bit of a rotation so we get some good cross hatching when it comes down to the grill marks. All right, so this should be all good to go now. So usually put it on for like 3 to 4 minutes each side. And again, I want to make sure you cook the chicken first, because these George Foreman grills don't tend to like cook all the way through in terms of getting something totally safe. So you want to make sure that you actually put pre-cooked chicken on there. Cook it ahead of time and don't put any kind of raw ingredients on there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slide the plate right underneath. This is really hot, so I want to let it cool a little bit. All right, so now that this is totally all set and done, I just want to let it sit for like good maybe minute or so. It's going to set up fast. Now, if you used regular basil on here, you might find that it wilted up a little bit, and sometimes it adds a little bit of moisture. So you want to make sure that you're kind of cognizant of that. Another tip that you can do is you can actually cook the crust in the oven for a little bit first. That way you're going to make it so it's really crispy, so you don't end up having it falling apart on the grill or anything like that. It all comes down to the quality of the grill that you're using. If I'm using just a simple George Foreman, it's not going to work super well. If you're using a good high quality panini press, obviously you can get a much better effect. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this a try. And remember guys, right now with this, we have practically 0 carbs in here. The only carbs that we're getting are very small amounts from the basil and very small amounts from whatever balsamic vinegar you use. The smoothness of that. See, that's the thing, is normally when you have a panini, you're getting the bread, so you're not actually getting the full texture that you would normally get in terms of the smoothness of the goat cheese and everything like that. You can definitely get all the textures across a lot better without it being just totally enveloped by the bread. So in fact, I would actually prefer, this almost came out like a caprese quesadilla more than a panini. I mean, it's super good. So it tastes kind of like a cross between a tortilla and bread. Anyhow, if you're on a keto diet, it's something that you're going to crave. You're going to crave that crunch. So I do want to make sure you know, you can make pizzas, you can make paninis, you can make quesadillas, you can make flatbreads, whatever you want when it comes down to using cauliflower crust. The cool thing is, there's an added benefit with cauliflower too. It's called diindole methane. So diindole methane is basically a component of the cauliflower that regulates hormones within the body. If you have high estrogen, male or female, you will find that using a little bit of a cauliflower crust, just because of the indole 3 carbinol and the diindole methane that's coming out of the cauliflower, is going to help regulate you a little bit, which means you're going to notice some of the water retention going down, you're going to notice some of the face puffiness going down, and you're going to notice overall regulation of mood. It's pretty powerful stuff. So remember, you can get your keto stack down below in the description, check it out, and it comes with my keto guide. So as always, keep it locked in here on my YouTube channel, and you know what to do. I'll see you in the next video.